It's Fred Weems again. Here is part 3 of the picture Hunter took. My throw-up was white, Fred said as the group walked toward the Metropolitan Cathedral. A whiter shade of pale, Frank said to Dan. Hunter heard and smiled to himself. He thought of repeating the joke to Courtney, but not wanting to cause Courtney any misgiving about not knowing his pop culture, said instead, "A splendid museum, wouldn't you say?" "Worth the entire journey," said Courtney. Rhoda had taken a cab from the museum to the airport, her luggage having been sent ahead by the hotel. "She trusts them to do that?" Joy had said to Lynn and Hunter. "It's clockwork with Rhoda," said Hunter. "She's so clear about everything. Everybody wants to do right by her." Besides, Hunter said to himself, Hotel Presidente is Hotel Presidente. The Frosts and Weemses had been staying in apartments outside a depot from which trucks without mufflers emerged all night, every night. But they weren't going to put Rhoda through that. No earplugs were needed where world leaders stayed, and words of consequence were lost in the soundproofing. Rhoda, in her 70s, had heard enough noise. He wondered if she'd heard about the disappearances he'd been hearing about, which had been planned, maybe, in the Hotel Presidente. In the cathedral, Hunter asked the kids if they wanted to take the tour the man in the cassock offered to lead. "No," said the kids. Hunter said softly, "I want you to take the tour." The boys looked bored. "He's given me invaluable information just now. Go over to him. He's waiting for you." Lynn, Hunter, Joy, and Courtney strolled through the cavernous spaces. Hunter overheard the priest saying to Bill, Bob, and Fred, "I will show you that this door cannot stay in one place. The edifice is sinking." The man opened a wooden door leading to the street. It continued opening after he let go. "It keeps going of its own accord," he said. "We sink into the soft sediment." "You swung it," said Bill. The man smiled. "No, no," said the man. "It moves by itself." Bill and Bob stared. "Try it," said the man. He closed the door. "Open it. You may." Bob opened the door. He let go of the handle, and the door continued to open. "You will see these red marks on the jamb," said the man. "These marks show how high the foundation has risen. We are tilting. Try," he said to Fred, and closed the door. Fred opened it, and it kept going after he let go. "Wow," said Fred. Bill put his finger on the door as it continued opening. It stopped opening. He removed his finger, and it stayed in position. He looked at the man. "Let me show you this," said the man, shutting the door and pointing upward. "This cornice was manufactured of volcanic ash obtained from a pyramid." "Why'd the door stop?" said Bill. "Let me show you this," said the man. "How'd you like the tour?" said Hunter to Fred as they descended the steps outside. "It was fun," said Fred. "8 pesos for a trick door," said Bill. "Sounds like a pretty jaded Monsignor," said Dan, emerging from a corner. He and Frank had avoided the personified tourist trap. "Jaded Monsignor," sang Frank. "Jaded Monsignor," sang Dan. "Like a jaded, faded, jaded," they sang. Hunter looked at the steps. Ancient women in shawls knelt in prayer. Their shadows stretched the length of the block. Rhoda's plane would be higher than the sun by now. "Look," said Lynn. A small figure with an orange head covering and blue jeans was kneeling on the steps. He hadn't heard the figure sneaking up there. It was a kid. "No," said Hunter. "Yes," said Lynn. Fred had taken the back of his orange T-shirt and pulled it up behind his head. His eyes were shut as he pretended to pray. "Oh, my God," said Joy. "That's worth the price of the trip," said Lynn. Hunter wondered if he should stop him. Fred stopped of his own accord and stood, pulling his shirt back down. He raised his arms over his head. "Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus," he said. "I got that from a Cheech and Chong record. The Pope is chanting to the crowd, and then the Mafia offers him a—" "Fred," said Fred's mother. There was one more sight to see that day. Diego Rivera said this was the most important building in modern America, Hunter said, as they arrived at the Olympic Stadium. "It's the red track," said Fred when they got inside. "They had it in my weekly reader." He jumped up and down on it. "This is where they gave that Black Power salute," said Joy. Hunter turned to Courtney. "No doubt you read there were riots about a week before the games, blocks away from the stadium." Courtney said, "I read a couple of vague articles buried in the Times. Hapgood told me there was some more of that just a month ago." "Yes, I talked to the brother at the cathedral. He hinted at very dark doings. Helicopters overhead, batons and bayonets below." "In '68, you mean," said Courtney. "Yes, but a month ago they shot about a dozen students. You know, they hung an anarchist flag at the cathedral." "Again?" "No, I'm being scattershot. That was '68. One of the church officials let them put it up for a few minutes, if the priest is to be believed. But the federales were much more efficient last month." "It's good we got the boys' haircuts before we started," said Courtney. "They're just too young to concern them. and we're Americanos. Don't I know it? Hey, said Fred, what did Leni Riefenstahl... Blah. Hey, said Fred, what did Leni Riefenstahl say before they started filming the 36 Olympics? Fred, said Fred's mother. Lights, camera, Achtung, said Fred. Fred, said Fred's father, remember where you are. On the way back from the stadium, Fred noticed a banana peel on the ground. Hunter saw him pick it up and put it in front of Frank's feet. Frank avoided it. Fred picked it up again and tried to put it in front of Frank's feet again. None of this nonsense, said Hunter, but I wanted to see if he could slip on a banana peel. All of them walked in silence. They passed the movie theater Fred had noticed over the past few days and had mentioned each time. We have to see that, said Fred. A poster of Jerry Lewis as a Nazi was in front. He read out loud the words, Jerry Lewis, hoy, donde está el frente? You know what that means? Jerry Lewis, today, where is the frente? Mom, what does frente mean? Cahiers de Cinema raved about that piece of dog crap, said Hunter to Lynn. Pièce de résistance, said Lynn, as the French say. Fred, said Joy, we're not seeing it. No one wants to see it. It will be dubbed in Spanish anyway. You won't understand it. Frente is front, by the way. Where's the front, said Fred. That must be sort of like if it were which way's up. Hunter was not surprised to hear Fred add, but we can see it with a Mexican audience. We can see how they react. We're all tired, said Joy, but we can see how they react to American culture, said Fred. We're not conducting an experiment, Hunter said. Little sparks were going off ahead. Bill and Bob were laughing. We did it, Bill was saying. We lit 2 farts, said Bob. Hunter clenched his teeth. Lynn saw and said in a bell-clear voice, Who dares to fart in Mexico? Bob and Bill burst out laughing. This is why we're here, said Lynn, linking her arm with Hunter's. That's the end of that part.